My name's Niran.
My name is Pepper, and welcome to the AOR Talkshow.
Here we go.
So, hello everybody, and welcome to the AOR Talkshow number 13 on a Friday. Well, this is going to be brilliant, but nevertheless, welcome everybody. And then I'm joined by Niran once again, and today we have in store the review of the very wet Malaysian Grand Prix, and we'll be predicting and previewing the Malaysian Grand Prix later on. But for now, we need to analyze the Malaysian Grand Prix. We were talking last talk show that it hadn't been a lot of rain in previous events at Malaysia in AOR. Well, I think Codemasters actually gave up on F1 2016 that Sunday and made our wishes come true.
Yeah, they actually listened to us. They decided they were going to stop development of F1 2016 and just go straight back to F1 2013 and give us some more monsoon conditions like we usually get in Malaysia. Although we have had them once in Korea in real life, which is obviously the race that we've got next up. But yeah, in Malaysia we had a full wet qualifying, didn't we, for the PlayStation 3 boys to try and handle. A pretty small field in terms of qualifying. Unfortunately, quite a few drivers not being able to make it, but it was still quite entertaining and quite important for various reasons.
Yeah, and obviously the qualifying didn't start the best way possible, obviously with Callum disconnecting very early on after setting only one lap in the qualifying, so that was him out of the qualifying and also the race, unfortunately, for the championship leader at that point, and giving Shane a very good opportunity to jump him on the standings. But nevertheless, Shane was the man to get pole position in absolute lake that was the Sepang International Circuit, ahead of F1 Dan, who comes back to the front rows after getting pole in Monaco. Mazais in third with the Ferrari, Professional and Pepper in fourth and fifth, and Sevalissa was the last man posting a lap on the treacherous conditions. Brown obviously had a quali ban, so he'll be starting 7th, and Philip decided not to qualify for some unknown reasons, and he was starting 8th. For the race, we had dry tyres at the start, so I think that was a relief for most drivers, but obviously we had percentage of rain for the race, I do believe. I think it was around 50-60% chance of rain, and with the dries, obviously on this game it means it will rain at the end of the race. If it's not raining at the start, it needs to rain at some point. But curiously enough, there were some different strategies going on.
Yeah, well, the wet qualifying, obviously meaning that the rule of you have to start the race on the tyres that you qualify on was completely thrown out the window because of the wet conditions in quali. So a lot of people actually taking the advantage or taking the opportunity to start on the prime tyres, especially with the knowledge that there was going to be rain as well at the end of the race for a little bit, for sort of like the last sort of 5 laps. But one person decided not to go with the crowd and put on the harder compound of the tyres, and that was actually the pole man Shane, who decided to start on the option tyres. So unsurprisingly, he sort of drove away a little bit from the rest of the field towards the start, and obviously had a shorter first stint than everyone else. It was a pretty entertaining first lap, the likes of Brown and Professional and Pepper and such like battling, Pepper managing to get through some people and moving from 5th to 3rd, I think it was, by the end of the first stint. But obviously the situation with the option tyres, meaning that the pace drops off towards the end of the stint, it allowed Mazais actually to catch back up to Shane, who was running in a very high second place at the time, was the Latvian in the Ferrari, making the most of the fact that Callum wasn't present.
Yeah, indeed, and it was looking great for Ferrari, especially at the end of the first stint, with obviously a Williams leading, but still a Ferrari 2 and 3, something that hasn't been really happening throughout the whole season. I mean, their best result in theory would have been Abu Dhabi, obviously, with a 1-2, but due to the weird circumstances of the race, we can't count on that. So it was looking very promising with the Ferraris, also the Red Bulls running 4th and 5th ahead of Brown. But yeah, Shane completely different to everyone else. Obviously, having to pit very early on lap 5, I do believe. So that put Mazais in the lead of a race ahead of his teammate and Dan. But quite far ahead, then Mazais decides to pit for options, contrary to what most of the drivers behind him on primes did, while Shane had to, well, basically get past the obstacle course of Philip and Savalissa after his pit. But at this point was when the strategy started to get even more different, because obviously Maz is pitting for options, then Brown and Professional pitting again for primes this time, and Pep and Dan staying out. Obviously there was a lot of clouds now over the circuit, so I guess they were expecting rain to come soon, but unfortunately not soon enough.
Yeah, the threat of imminent rain at the end of the race actually made it very, very weird strategy-wise, because obviously you had Shane and Mazais, who were trying to do an option stint at some point during the race before the rain then inevitably came. And then obviously the likes of Dan and Pepper, who were just trying to stay out and do one less pit stop than everyone else, stick on another set of primes, and then go again until the rain comes down, and then put some intermediates on, so do 2 stops, then the wet changeover, or the inters changeover, instead of 3 stops and then the inters changeover. And then obviously people a little bit in between. Brown and Professional, who decided they were just going to stick on another set of primes and see how it went, and they pitted at the same time as the likes of Mazai. So you had a lot of, a full 3 different strategies really going on, potentially 4, amongst the 8 drivers, just to see how quick they could be before the inters conditions kicked in. Because obviously if you can try and do 1 less pit stop than everyone else, you're going to try, but it really depended on when the rain came down. It did actually start on lap 17, but it was really slow to cause the track to dampen, if you like, to the point where it's actually inters conditions. It can obviously rain, but you can still stay on dry tyres. The inters require quite a lot of rain on the track in order to stay cool and not wear out completely. And that just didn't happen for quite some time. The rain was very slow to wet the track.
Yeah, indeed, and obviously that cost Pepper and Dan a lot of time. I mean, they were at one point overtaken by Shane, who was obviously coming behind them because of doing 1 more pit stop than them, and it really didn't pay off. They ended up doing 11 laps on primes when what most drivers were doing was around 9. So they were really motivated to try and make the strategy work, but obviously the rain didn't come soon enough. So Pepper had to pit at the end of lap 19, I do believe. And he ended up pitting for inters, hoping it would still work. It didn't. Dan pitted a lap after pitting 1 lap later as well. On the first stint, still wasn't ready because it was only ready around lap 23-24, so that put Pepper in terrible tyres at the end of the race. Dan ended up retiring, and so did Philip, who at this point had been lapped already. Maybe some issues with the Mercedes car, but yeah, Shane ended up having a race somewhat similar to US on similar conditions as well. And also with Callum not finishing the race, Mazais took the opportunity to finish a very strong second, and Brown getting Mercedes' first podium of the season in Malaysia. But I think the highlights was really, and the most important for the standings was really Shane's win at Malaysia.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, for the championship, it's obviously closed things up a lot at the top of the table, but it was in the actual race itself wasn't massively entertaining from a top 2 perspective, because unlike the battle that we've got in the championship, which is very close, we ended up with Shane winning the race by 21 seconds over Mazais. As you said, though, he had a very strong race. He did try to screw himself over strategy-wise by putting those options on, almost cost him. It did cost him quite a lot of time in comparison to Shane, but thankfully for him, not too much in comparison to other people. Brown grabbing third, Professional in fourth, Pepper having messed up the strategy. And it did actually, I mean, on paper, it seems like a good strategy. You always want to try and limit the amount of pit stops that you do, but unfortunately for him, the rain was too slow. Same for Dan and same for Philip, those two retiring. Sevalista may have disconnected at some stage during the race as well, which is unfortunate for him. He ended up coming 8th. Callum 9th. Whether he actually gets any points because he disconnected in qualifying, I'm not actually clear on. If he does, then he would get 2 points, but obviously if not, then he'll get 0. It doesn't make too much of a difference anyway. But okay, right, he gets 2 points, which is lucky for him. Obviously, the field being so small, helping him in that sense. But it did, in equal senses, help Shane. Once Callum had disconnected from qualifying, you felt that Shane was never going to be in a situation where he wasn't leading the championship or gaining a lot of substantial points on Callum just because of the low amount of people that were taking part. And then obviously the way the race went, it fell very much kindly to him. In terms of the standings, I guess then, it has, as I said, closed things together quite a lot. Shane, though, does now leapfrog Callum at the top of the table, and he's now 6 points in front of his Williams teammate on 157.
Yeah, and it's still a very close gap. Nevertheless, I mean, obviously, Callum was coming to Malaysia 17 points ahead or something like that, so something very close. So Callum now loses the lead, and we were talking last time out that the championship leader, every time they reached this stage, they won the championship at the end 5 out of 6 times. So a bit of ironic to happen the race after, but nevertheless, still a pretty close gap, only 6 points separating the two Williams drivers. Then the battle for third getting even more tastier with Dan only 14 points ahead of Pepper, and Pepper 4 points ahead of his teammate. So it's still pretty close for third place. Obviously, they still have also a chance to try and fight for the lead of the champion. Obviously, 57 points separating first and fifth. Nevertheless, Professional is now 6th after jumping Jamie, who failed to join us for the Malaysian Grand Prix, unfortunately. So Professional is on 79, Jamie on 70. Brown jumps the other Caterham of Vettel to 8th place now with 53 points. A very strong and good result for Brown. Vettel on 51. Philip gets a few more points on the board. It's now on 30. Sevalesa on 28. Jordan, despite retiring, he's still on the table with 21 points. Lee and Red Jams obviously missing the Malaysian Grand Prix on 13 and 4 points respectively. In the constructors, nothing really changed, but there was one change, Niran.
Well, I mean, when you said literally nothing changed, that is actually the case between the top two. I'm fairly sure for the last few rounds, certainly last time, Williams had a 104-point lead over the team that was in second place, and that has been maintained remarkably once again for a second at least race in a row. So Williams are top, then still the Constructors' Championship. They're well on their way to winning that unless they have a complete meltdown before the end of the season. They're on 308 points. 104 points, though, at a Ferrari now, who have leapfrogged Red Bull with a bit of change to spare. They're now 7 points clear of them. Of course, Red Bull on 197. Caterham are still running in fourth, although both of their drivers had pretty damaging absences, I suppose, in Malaysia, because Jamie dropped a position to Professional, and Vettel obviously dropped a position as well to Brown, who scored that podium. But in terms of the Constructors' Championship, they're still in fourth and a full 41 points clear of fifth. Sauber, they're occupying that, but they've now got a lot of pressure from behind in Mercedes. Obviously, Brown getting that podium, meaning they're now only 7 points behind Sauber, who haven't really managed to get two drivers together for the last few rounds. So Mercedes will definitely be sniffing weakness, and then Lotus still at the bottom of the table there on in 7th. So just to clarify, Caterham in 4th on 131, Sauber in 5th on 90, Mercedes in 6th on 83, and then Lotus in 7th on 49.
Yeah, it's still... Well, it's heating up for the fight for 5th, but Lotus unfortunately not quite yet. pretty much.
Yeah, unfortunately for them, again, we come back to the same issue that we had before. Basically one driver at the moment, so it's going to be very difficult for them to carry themselves up towards that battle for 5th. I remember last time I said that Mercedes were basically a one-man team, and then obviously Brown comes back and scores his best result, I think, of the season. And suddenly they're right back in it with the battle with Sauber. But yeah, still lovely battle going on for 5th, and a really good battle as well going up, shaping up, for 2nd. Ferrari and Red Bull taking lumps out of each other every race at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, if you can fight for the lead, at least fight for 2nd.
Exactly. Yeah, there's still something to fight for, eh?
But yeah, that was a reasonable Malaysian Grand Prix, let's say. Obviously, unfortunately, didn't have James live streaming, and I'm afraid he won't be live streaming the next 2 races as he's going to England. So if any of you want to punch him in the face and you live in England, go ahead. I'm sure it won't be too hard to find him, but nevertheless, that's our review of the Malaysian Grand Prix, and now we a different team as we did last week. Obviously last week it was Lotus. This time around is 6th place Mercedes, and very similar to what we did last week. It won't be too in depth. It will just be a comparison to last year's not last year's season 9, which was the last time they appeared on the grid for AOR, and starting to look at the drivers' positions, comparing from season 9 and season 11. Obviously, it's important to say that in season 9 they did have a change of drivers, because until I think this round or round 12 of season 9 it was a driver. Then after that, Pepper actually took over on the Mercedes with Majako, the Australian driver. So, but nevertheless, after round 11 of season 9, the Mercedes drivers were running 3rd and 4th in the standings. Season 11 is a bit different, with Brown running 8th and Philip running 10th. It's a bit like Lotus last season, but could we say it's a bit better?
It's slightly less extreme, isn't it? But it's still quite a contrast in fortunes. Obviously, Lotus have gone from being literally the best team to the worst team in the Constructors' Championship. Mercedes have gone from being, I assume, 2nd in the Constructors' Championship in season 9, or certainly around there, to being 2nd bottom. But they're not exactly miles off everyone else. They have put some decent performances together throughout the season. But yeah, still 3rd and 4th to 8th and 10th isn't exactly the greatest of changes over the 2 seasons. Yeah,
and then looking at the constructors in season 9, at this point they were actually leading the championship.
Oh, okay.
Curiously enough, with 264 points. Season 11 they're 6th with 83 points, so it's quite a bit of a difference. It's not like 300 points like it was for Lotus.
Yeah.
But obviously they are very close to Sauber now, but still, I mean, it's not as drastic, fine, but they probably want to go back to their previous glory in season 9, where they actually won the constructors title despite a Williams driver winning the drivers' championship.
Yeah. I mean, it's again, as like I said, it's not quite the most drastic change in fortunes like it was for Lotus, but that's still quite a big gap after 11 rounds, 264 to 83. I think though Mercedes can, realistically, definitely aim for 5th in the Constructors' Championship this year. 4th if they really get some good results together, but I highly doubt that. 5th is probably a realistic aim for them, which isn't too bad. You're still beating 2 teams at the end of the day, but of course it's not obviously as good as winning the Constructors' Championship like they did in season 9.
Yeah, and curiously enough, the next following facts are actually like the same. It's exactly the same results. Do you want to take us through that, Niran?
Yeah, absolutely. In season 9 then, their best result actually was 1st. That only happened once, which is quite incredible. To win the Constructors' Championship, but to only actually win 1 race across the season is quite phenomenal. But their best result in season 11 in comparison to that is 1 3rd position, which was obviously scored by Brown in the race that we've just reviewed in Malaysia. And as you said, the stat is basically the same when it comes to qualifying. In season 9, they took 1 pole position, and in season 11, in comparison, they took 1 third position. Literally exactly the same as the best race results. So that's spooky. But when you look at it that way, they haven't really changed much over the 2 seasons.
Yeah, I guess that is true. Until this point of the season, it's been quite balanced, and it hasn't been terrible. Obviously, the consistency, it's a different matter, but the best results in itself, it's reasonable. I mean, obviously, it's 1 podium in both seasons so far, so it's not looking too bad. Obviously, I think if Brown keeps showing up now, I think Mercedes have definitely a very strong driver in him, and Philip obviously consistently getting a reasonable amount of points each race, so I think the fight is pretty much on 5th place, but giving them a rating after round 11, considering the first 11 races of Mercedes, I mean, Philip, we've said this before, he's not the fastest driver on the field. Brown has the potential to challenge for consistent top 5s, but hasn't really been showing up recently. So, how do we rate here? I mean, fair enough, they have a podium now, and they have a second row position in qualifying, but they haven't been outstanding, and they don't really have been in the same situation as Lotus have. So
yeah, I think the key point really is that they could have been better. They could have. I mean, with Lotus, you look at the situation and think, well, they've only got 1 driver, like, consistently throughout the season. You've got to expect them to be at the bottom. But with Mercedes, they have got a good driver in Brown, who has been decent when he's raced. There have been occasions where he hasn't performed quite to his potential. But that podium in Malaysia was a very strong result, helped by the loss of strategy, or helped by the strategy or lack of in some instances by some drivers. But it was still a good drive to take a podium place. That sort of drive would be like a 7 out of 10 rating. But across the whole season, Mercedes have underperformed a little bit, just literally, as you said, through consistency. If Brown had been to more events, they would probably be challenging for 4th right now.
Yeah, and I do agree with it, and that's why I'm generally considering giving a lower grade than we gave to Lotus.
Yeah,
I think maybe either a 5 out of 10 or a 6 out of 10, because I mean, they really have the potential, especially through Brown, to fight even for wins at some tracks. So for me, it's a 5 out of 10 because I know they can do better.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I would say 5. I think did we give Lotus 6 out of 10?
Yeah.
Last time? Yeah, I would agree with that then. In that case, like sort of scaling to that, I would give them a 5 out of 10 as well. Just not because obviously they've had a worse season than Lotus, but they could have done better. I mean, if they take 5th in the championship, then that's all right, I guess. But they could have been fighting for 4th, because Brown is actually he's a good driver. He can get himself into incidents every now and again, but he's a good driver. So I'm sure before the season, maybe Mercedes probably would have been hoping for a little bit better.
Yeah, and obviously, finally, we need to predict. Well, I guess this isn't as hard as to predict the results of each race, but we need to predict the position they'll finish at the end of the season. And I think, comparing lineups, I think 5th place is very achievable to Mercedes. I mean, it's pretty easy to get, especially with the likes of Brown. So I'll go with 5th. I don't know what you'll go with.
Yeah, I would be inclined to agree. And it all hinges really on whether Brown is consistent between now and the end of the season. Will he actually attend more than 3 of the remaining 5 races I think there are left in the season? Because if he does, then it's basically nailed on that they'll score 5th in the championship. But if not, if it's basically Philip again, like it has been for the last few rounds, then genuinely, I think Sauber can. Just making all things equal, though, I will, for the balance of argument, I'll just say I think Mercedes, though, will score 5th in the Constructors' Championship, so they'll rise one position higher than they are currently.
Yeah, I can go with that. And yeah, let us know what do you think of the Mercedes performance so far in this season, and let us know what you think about Lotus as well. We analyzed last round, or last talk show even. But nevertheless, now we have a brand new Grand Prix to analyze, and it's I'm gonna be honest, it's not one of my favorites, but I gotta deal with it. Obviously, it's the Korean Grand Prix, and for that matter, we'll take you now on board on a lap at the Yeongam.
Yongam, I think.
Yongam?
I don't know. Just cut to the lap.
Yeah, just the Korean Grand Prix lap.
Okay then, so that was a lap round the Yongam Korea International Circuit. We'll just stick with South Korean track, to be honest with you. It's quite a different track, I guess, in comparison to many things that you see on the calendar in real life these days in Formula One. But it's got quite a few different sort of zones of the track, if you like. The first sector is very stop-start. You know, it's very okay. Now you're at full speed. Now you're practically at nothing. Certainly, turn 1 and turns 3, and even turn 4 actually are all very heavy braking zones. From then on, really, until the end of the lap, it is relatively flowing. I suppose turns 7 and 8 are a bit reminiscent actually of Phillip Island in terms of how they look. You know, away from the actual look of the track. If you're looking at it from above, then it's quite reminiscent of the middle sector in Phillip Island. Turns 9 and 10 are right, then a slightly sharper left, then the very long turn, that is turn number 11. So that's a left-hander into turn number 12, then turn 13. It's very fast-paced in terms of here's another corner, then just chucks another one at you straight afterwards, which I suppose makes it slightly more flowing. Very different turn 17 and 18, and also pit entry as well around Korea. It's quite interesting, I suppose. Also very easy to get wrong. Very easy to just drop it completely out of turn 17 on the way into the pit lane. Yeah, some big opportunities to overtake, mainly at the start of the lap. How would you rate the track overall?
Terrible. Absolutely terrible.
I knew that was coming.
But no, generally, as you said, the first sector is pretty much where we're going to see 95% of the overtakes, obviously braking to turn 1, then the hardest corner of the track, turn 2, braking for turn 3, another overtaking spot, and at the end of sector 1, start sector 2, turn 4, And as you said before, the last section is quite flowing. If it wasn't for the curbs, because it has some very nasty curbs at some corners, which doesn't really. I mean, I understand why you're there and why they're like that, but at the same time, it kind of takes away some advantage that could give some drivers to maybe try a different overtaking maneuver. But nevertheless, it's a different track, like you said, and it's also different because of the tire choices from Pirelli, which we still don't understand. But we're going to run the super soft and the medium compounds because that's logical. And yeah, it's I mean, tire wear isn't too bad, so that's a good thing. Like Monaco, I'm not sure it's very good. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, it's as you said, it's a very strange choice of tyres to skip out a compound. Usually, obviously, if you're seeing the super soft as the options, you'd see the soft tyres, the yellow wall tyres as the primes. But having the mediums and just skipping out, it seems a bit strange and very conservative. But obviously, I suppose Pirelli were feeling their way into the track. I guess. So actually, well, by this point, it probably wasn't a new track really. I think this was the last year that it was run actually.
Yeah.
So they probably should have known a bit better really, instead of being conservative. Obviously, like you saw Pirelli when we first went to Sochi, they were very conservative on the tyres because they didn't actually know how they were going to perform. I guess that's sort of a similar thing here, but who knows? Anyway, who knows? It's a kind of strange track to match that strange tyre choice, I guess, because at the start it's almost like it's like Canada. It's like a street circuit, and then after that it's not really anything, is it? I mean, it's sort of. It's very strange. It's almost really difficult to decide whether it's a flowing, nice open track or a street circuit. It's almost in the middle, which is a bit weird. It's sort of almost a bit like Australia, but even less street circuit-like. It's very odd.
Yeah, still, it was designed to be half street, half permanent.
Yeah.
But as you can see on the lovely details of the track, there is no city around it. So, I mean. No offense to the Koreans, but you really can't. If you want to do something, actually do it, and don't
half do it.
Yeah, the track isn't even that good. I mean, I don't know. It's an annoying track for me. But
it was an annoying track for a lot of people. Hence why it's not on the calendar anymore. I mean, it was never really the jewel of the calendar, was it? Even in real life, a lot of people were just sort of like, "Why is this here?" But a lot like the Indian Grand Prix actually. The support wasn't incredible, even though you got the feeling the country was sort of getting into Formula 1. The support wasn't great, the money that came in wasn't great, and the actual circuit itself just was a bit meh.
Yeah, they didn't learn with Spain to get sponsors, but that's a story for another time.
Every single track, every single corner even.
If you don't know that, just check out the talk show where we predicted the Spain Grand Prix, where Niran decided to absolutely take the piss off the Spanish Grand Prix. But
yeah, very much so.
Nevertheless, it's on the calendar, so we need to do it. Hopefully it will be a decent race. Who knows, maybe we have a 2010 style race. That would be catastrophic after what we saw in Malaysia. But yeah, it's the next track on the calendar, and we have to run it. Nevertheless, it's time for our facts again. Top 5. We need to take down the costs of making this talk show.
It's hitting us hard. It's cost-cutting time, I'm afraid. Jobs are going. Facts are going as well. So
we're losing
had to
staff.
halve it from a top 10 to a top 5. Yeah, we've lost staff, which in this instance are facts. So yeah, top 10 halved to a top 5. God, shocking.
But
the times that we live in.
If you want to help us out, just start funding the AOR Talkshow.
Yeah, you can send us a small loan of £1 million per month, and I'm sure that'll cover it.
Yeah, nevertheless, going for fact number 1, for 4 times out of 5, because obviously the Korean Grand Prix was in season 9 of 2014 cars, the season champion won at Korea, so 4 out of 5, that's pretty good. And the time the champion even didn't win, he finished second. Well, that's a massive difference. Well done.
It's looking increasingly likely that we're getting a Williams win this time around, isn't it? Realistically, based off that fact, they'll be hoping that's an omen again. But it's always weird when we get these stats where it's like, you know, out of this amount of times the season the champion has or hasn't won. Here it's strange what tracks seem to suit the outright fastest driver in that particular season and what tracks don't necessarily suit that driver or that champion.
But we didn't really need these facts to say one Williams will probably win, though.
Oh yeah, I mean that's a very strong possibility most of the time. But there's been times where it hasn't, so we're going to hold out hope for a late comeback from a Sauber or something. I don't know. But yeah, anyway, moving on to fact number 2. We are yet to see a wet session at all at the Korean track. Yeah, in my experience as well of playing F1 2013 and playing the Korean track, I've never ever seen a rain-affected session whatsoever in Korea, which is strange because we had that massive monsoon in 2010, I think, where Rosberg and Webber, oh man, that was a famous crash. But I mean, anyway, yeah, I suppose maybe it's an omen that we're going to get a wet session, given that we haven't had any before in this league. But are you surprised that around this track we've not had a single wet session out of 5 seasons?
A little bit. I mean, obviously the time weather and all sorts of stuff at the Codemasters game. Sometimes, if you're not talking about ridiculous events of Bahrain and Abu Dhabi, where just rain would be stupid. I mean, I would expect maybe one wet session. I mean, to make it like normal, especially as you said, 2010, which was absolute catastrophe and disaster and chaos and everything. It would be quite fun to have a wet session, maybe 2 this Sunday, obviously, because it will be the last Korean Grand Prix in AOR. This time for definite, unless 2016 is crap online and we need to come back to this game.
God, let's hope not. I mean, God, I do have my doubts though, to be honest with you. But
so do I. But you know,
that's a story for another day, isn't it? I guess.
Yeah. But we'll have to wait and see what happens Sunday. Nevertheless, going for the next fact and to prove us that again we chose the wrong cars for season 11, Force India is the only team with 2 wins at this track, ahead of Sauber, Toro Rosso and Lotus with 1 each, with the last being the only team so far getting a 1-2 finish. Obviously last season Iceman winning ahead of Dan.
Yeah, I swear this is like the 3rd time that we've had Force India mentioned in a fact.
Yep.
But yeah, it always seems to be that the teams that we don't have this season seem to crop up. Toro Rosso, McLaren seem to be featured quite a lot. The odd Marussia as well here and there. But yeah, Force India grabbing 2 wins at the track. That's only I suppose Lotus and Sauber are both, of course, running this season. But I think we're probably going to be in store for a very, very mental race if either Sauber or Lotus win in Korea.
Yeah, I'll be very impressed.
I will be as well. I mean, by any means someone can make that happen, but I think the odds on it will be pretty large.
Yeah.
Fact number 4 then, from the drivers of the current grid that raced here last year, Callum was the only one not to complete the race after disconnecting at the end of qualifying, almost like he did in Malaysia last time out, and then with Dan getting the best result in 2nd and Pepper was in 5th that time as well. Obviously we've got a lot of new drivers this season. You'll have known that if you watched like the first talk show of this entire series. So not many drivers have raced here, of course. Callum hasn't technically raced here because of disconnecting at the end of qualifying, but I'm sure Dan and Pepper will be calling upon their experience to try and make sure they do as well as they can this time around as well.
And Lee, I completely forgot. Leaf actually finished third last year with Sauber as well.
Really?
Yeah. So my bad, Lee. I'm sorry. But yeah, he did finish third and got the fastest lap last time out with the Sauber. So he rejoined Sauber this season. And well, he doesn't seem to be on the same pace as he was last time out, but still, yeah, we have basically, as you said, 4 drivers that already raced this track 1 year ago. So it can count strategy-wise and pace-wise maybe a little bit, but obviously we have other very strong drivers that possibly know this track well enough to challenge for higher positions. Nevertheless, last fact of this shortened version of the top 10 facts. This, as I said earlier, this will be the last time AOR goes to Korea since it's retiring from the calendar in 2013, having a total of 6 races in what is now the 7th season we have in record, the 5th Grand Prix with less races throughout the AOR Championship, ahead of India with 5, Italy and Canada with 4 due to, well, corner cutting issues, and Europe with 2, obviously only running in the 2012 car seasons in the street circuit of Valencia, which I could easily replace Korea with. I'd prefer to have Valencian, but
that's saying a lot.
Yeah, but interesting to see that Korea has more races than India, Italy, and Canada, which are, well, maybe not India, but Italy and Canada are far better at racetracks. But unfortunately, you know, Codemasters didn't quite nail the corner cutting system for those games, sadly. But yeah, goodbye Korea. Bye.
Bye. Have a good time. Yeah, we're really gonna miss you, Korea, in no way whatsoever. To be honest with you, it's I don't know. It provided some alright races in real life, but I don't think it was ever going to be a track that had any sort of longevity. Obviously, in this league, that is the case because obviously in some regards it has to reflect real life. But same as India, pretty low amount of races at that track, and then obviously, as you said, Italy and Canada, obviously, you know, great tracks in real life, tracks that most of the drivers really love to drive around, and probably some of the drivers in this league love to drive around, but unfortunately, it is not possible.
Yeah.
Well, for now, anyway.
Well, hopefully F1 2016 has proper.
We're putting all our hopes on that.
Yeah, pretty much. Or else we'll lose our jobs, and there goes the talk show. But,
yeah, well, you know what? I don't want that to happen.
No.
So we're probably not going to get that small loan of £1 million from anyone. So that's that one issue. So we're relying on you, F1 2016. We need you.
Yeah, very very desperately. But yeah, that is indeed the end of our top 5 facts, and going now to our very much beloved prediction stage of the talk show. Obviously, Niran got 15 points out of the Malaysian Grand Prix after predicting Shane to win and get the fastest lap. I got absolutely blown away with Callum disconnecting when I predicted him for pole, fastest lap and win. So that was a massive fail, but yeah, I got 0 points from the Malaysian Grand Prix. Niran got 15, so he's now on 70, and I'm on 50. Yay!
Hey, whoop whoop. I want to thank my parents, my agent. I'm actually honestly quite shocked. It must be luck, to be honest. Well, it is luck, obviously, but I'm not making, you know, actual, like, I'm not putting any research into it. That's what I'm trying to say. So it's literally luck, but I'll take it for now. Hopefully, I can defend this lead. Although I'm sure I won't.
No, hope not. But yeah, and yeah, it's time to do our predictions this time around. Obviously, sponsored by Shane this little moment. Obviously, Shane is now the man with most fastest laps, and he cannot be beaten after getting his 7th fastest lap in Malaysia. So DHL Fastest Lap Awards goes to Shane with 5 races to spare. Well
We'll
done.
just get sued now by DHL. Whatever.
Shh, that was supposed to be a secret.
They'll never know. They'll never know.
But yeah, it's time to predict now the results for the Korean Grand Prix. I'll let you start, Niran.
Okay, well that's very honourable of you. Obviously we've got to predict pole, the fastest lap, and then
Top
podium
3.
position. So
Yeah.
who comes first, second, and third. So pole position. Oh man, I'm gonna go for the young Callum to get pole in the Williams. And
Alright.
I'm also gonna say that he's gonna win the race. I'm gonna say second place is gonna be Dan, and third place is gonna be Jamie in the Caterham, and then fastest lap for Pepper for no reason whatsoever. There you go, bam, done. There's literally no thought in processing that at all. I've just picked like 4 random drivers.
Now hold
Well,
on,
I
I need to
will take
process any information. Be
Yeah,
right back.
Yeah, I went there. Pepper fastest lap. No, it's not going to happen. I know it is. It isn't. But I mean, there's hope at least. And then what? And then Jamie third, Dan second because he came second last year. That's basically my logic behind that one. And then Callum to win, and Callum to get to get pole. Come at me.
I'm very
Come at me,
confused.
people of the internet.
Um,
I'm pushing my luck, basically. I'm seeing how far my luck can go. Because if that happens, then I'm destined
I
to
give
win this
up.
competition.
I give up. Just
I'm destined if that happens. I mean, there's no coming back if that all of that
No,
stuff
just-
happens.
I'll give up the copyrights from the AOR Talkshow to Niran. Just he takes control of it now. Nah, I'm done.
I'll be
But
head, you'll be the guest instead.
yeah.
Basically, nothing will change, but still. There you go. Right, time for your predictions then.
Well, pole position. I think I'll follow you and say
Boom.
Callum will get pole position. Since he says it's one of his favorite tracks, and Dan says the same. While Shane,
Yeah, I definitely knew that. 100%. Didn't at all.
yeah, did you know Shane is looking for damage limitation as well?
Yes, I did. I completely knew that. Hence why I didn't predict him in the top 3. I 100% knew that Shane was not gonna be enjoying this track. So yeah, I had all this intel going into my prediction. 100% definitely. A bit, sort of.
This script is
Kinda.
real. We're gonna be fired.
Oh man, I get so lucky.
But yeah, Callum for pole in my perspective. To win, I'll pick Dan.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll go with that. And third place, I'll go with Brown.
Oh, now that is out there. I mean, that's heavily reliant on him actually coming to the race in the first place.
Well,
But that's well out there. That is. I like that.
and fastest lap.
That's a me prediction. But yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
Who's your fastest lap then?
Well, the only way to beat your prediction for the fastest lap is to pick Philip, but I'm not gonna do that. I'll go with. Well, why not? I'll go with Shane.
Okay.
Because-
Right, okay.
If he screws up, he'll put the super softs and beat the fastest lap. If not, he'll find a way.
Okay.
So-
alright. I'm glad you didn't use the same logic as you did last time, where you were like, well, you know, Pepper likes the track, Shane's got the most amount, so I'm going to pick Callum. I would have loved logic like that again, but regrettably no. I think Shane is probably a safer pick for that, but you know, there you go.
But yeah, I think that's a reasonable prediction from me. Well, yours isn't too bad except for the fastest lap.
It's a bit out there, but hey, there we go. Live and learn.
Yeah. So make sure you let us know what your predictions are for the Korean Grand Prix. And sadly, I don't think James will be live streaming this race, as I said at the start of the talk show, he'll be traveling to England. So yeah, if you want to meet him, I think you'll meet someone. I think you'll meet Callum and Shane. Maybe they'll miss a race and give us a win. I know, something like that. But no, but seriously, that's that's our prediction. I think it's pretty much it from the 13th talk show on a Friday. This is brilliant. We didn't have that much of a bad luck.
Yes,
which is good. Unless obviously the video doesn't upload, that would be unlucky. But
can you imagine?
Oh, please don't. Now I'm going to upload it on the Thursday and schedule it just to be sure.
Just to make sure.
But that's pretty much all we have to say about the Korean Grand Prix that will happen this Sunday. And I'll let Niran wrap up this time.
So as Pepper says, that is basically it for the unlucky 13th episode of the AOR Talk Show. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed our review of Malaysia and the preview as well to the next round in Korea. As always, not as always in terms of the stream, but unfortunately, as we said, James won't be streaming for the next races. But as always, you can check out the highlights from different points of view from different drivers. Shane and Pepper tend to upload their footage, so you can check out their highlights as well. I'm sure that'll be in the description or something. Make sure to subscribe to Pepper as well. Obviously you'll be watching this on his channel, but if you're new around to this channel, then make sure to subscribe to him. You can check me out as well if you want. FNG Racing is my channel. Don't forget to hit the likes button as well on this particular video and comment your thoughts on the video itself, and also leave your predictions for the next race in Korea. But it has been a pleasure from both of us, and I guess we'll see you next time.
See ya.
Peace. That was an aggressive piece. Wow. Peace, motherfuckers. No.